El asylum contact group pocas veces ha ido mejor. Sure. Dear colleagues, thank you for resuming our works. We had a busy morning, didn't we? From early in the morning, we stayed there. We had a round of candidates for Frontex. Then we had a round of hearings with the Ukrainian solidarity efforts, particularly by the neighboring member states bordering Ukraine. And now we're having nothing less than 3 candidates for EULISA, another relevant agency of our jurisdiction, of the LIBE Committee. EULISA agency dealing with so-called large-scale, high-tech databases. And you know that Mr. Karpov came to an end in his mandate, in his term. So we have the 3 shortlisted candidates. According to Article 25 of EULISA regulations, we have invited them and we are to assess them. After having heard of them, the coordinators will have a specific talk on the assessment after having heard their cases. We're getting started with Mrs. Agnès Diallo. And I have just explained her that it is the essential condition of our works to mind the time frame. It'll be 7 minutes for each candidate and then a round of questions and answers representing every political group. Okay. Mrs. Diallo, we welcome you warmly. Thank you for being here. And of course, as I said, congratulations for having been shortlisted, which is a signal of your competence, of your high profile. We shake your hand. And now we will hear the second candidate as listed in alphabetic order. I'm sure you know that's the way we are proceeding this afternoon. So we are now receiving the second candidate of us, which is Mr. Hamande. He's a Belgian candidate whom I invite to approach the podium. Yes, please, come around. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Take your seat. Bye.
Thank you.
Best luck. Now, as we said, we have a second candidate. We only urge you because it is obvious that the time is insufficient as to the interest of the post and the discussion behind it. So please make it in maximum 7 minutes, and then we will be hearing from the questions and answers right afterwards. Go ahead.
1, 2, 3. Oui. Bonjour à tous, mesdames et messieurs. C'est un honneur pour moi d'être là aujourd'hui. C'est vraiment, je crois...
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to be here today. I won't take too much time for my introduction.
We as citizens in the European Union are enjoying freedom, justice and security. Nevertheless, there are many, many challenges emerging and new threats. We know the situation that we have beside the borders of the Union, and we have also emerging digitalization everywhere. And digitalization is, of course, opening a number of opportunities in terms of well-being of people, but also at the same time bringing new threats. You entrusted EULISA with new missions. For example, developing and managing very important systems, which will allow, of course, the borders authorities and many other authorities to well function and protect freedom, security and justice of all the citizens. You entrusted EULISA to take the challenge to deliver all-time-on services to the borders authorities and many other agencies to perform the activities. There are challenges at the EULISA, let's be very clear, from an organization point of view, from people point of view, but also at the same time with stakeholders, including member states, but also with providers. My career started in the private sector. I spent a lot of time in the technology sector, building networks and what we call today internet in the 90s. I was really involved in building data centers to provide application services, and I was also involved in developing new technologies in data centers, wireless technologies, and security. After this very, very large experience in very large projects, delivering networks to public sectors, very important institutions like NATO, or banking sectors like SWIFT or Euroclear, and many others, I decided to move to the public sector. And my father told me, Jack, no, I'm very proud of you. I joined the public sector, becoming the Director General of Civil Servants for the Belgian state. And I was managing the transformation of federal organization impacting more than 60 organizations and 70,000 people. During this period, I learned a lot, and I became very proud about the values of the public sector. Afterwards, I was leading the Belgian regulator, and I joined the board of BEREC, which is the board of European regulators for electronic communications. I was very proud to be engaging with the Parliament on very important subjects like designing net neutrality, designing new spectrum, new services for the importance of enterprise and also civil servants, I mean public services and citizens, obviously. I was also engaging in national security, discussing and taking roles about national security and also European security. I learned a lot too, and I took engagement at international level in very large diversity in ITU, International Telecommunication Union, and also sitting on the board of the Universal Postal Union, where I had to manage very sensitive discussion about evolution of the e-commerce sector, but also the digitalization of very, very intensive sector employing a lot of citizens in Europe. I'm very happy to say that if I'm here today, I know that the challenges are very high. Do I believe that the journey will be a relaxing one? No. The EU-LISA need to transform to take the leadership on what you entrust them to do. And they are good people, and we need to continue to invest there. Secondly, the organization should be transforming to ensure that the delivery, which is expected in the programming plan and also in the different operational plans, will be delivered to make sure that the different customers of EU-LISA will be happy and able to perform the new activities they have to. And last but not least, obviously, there are many challenges to support the member states and obviously to engage with the providers, and there are also many issues there. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very proud to be here today. It's an honor for me. And if I'm here today, it's because, no doubt, I would like to take the challenge. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You made it sharp, 7 minutes. Now we proceed right to the questions and answers, getting started with Jerome Lenners. You go first.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Mr. Hamande. Congratulations on making it to the final 3 on the list. And we look forward to hear more from you. I have some very concrete questions. Mainly, if you could say if you have any experience also working in the EU or EU agencies, and whether you are familiar with the budgetary, the financial, and the human resources related procedures and regulations that are involved in that. Secondly, and this is also the question I asked to your colleague candidate, one of the main challenges we see for EU-LISA is the human resources issue. We see there's fierce competition between a public sector, you mentioned this yourself in your personal story, and competition from the private sector, both in IT and cybersecurity. And how are we going to solve that challenge? How are we going to address that? Also, because there is a lot on the plate of EU-LISA with the interoperability framework, entry-exit, ETIAS, now with the PRUM and the API routers that will be added to that, SIS, VIS, ECRIS. What will you do also to ensure the timely implementation of all of these projects? Because now we mostly see delays in this particular issue. And I want one personal question. You mentioned in your CV also you work on the European Digital Identity Instrument in Belgium. It's, of course, also an interesting topic in the European Parliament still at the moment. So maybe you could say a few words on how in Belgium you managed to balance the security and privacy risks when moving forward with the EID. Thank you.
You go for the answer, 1.5 minutes. Do it. Short.
Thank you very much. Then, yes, I have experience with EU agencies because I was involved, as I said, on the board of two organizations at EU level, which is BEREC. I was sitting in the mini board when we had, of course, to submit all the budgeting and to follow the budgeting cycle, including presenting to the Parliament all the discharge and so on. Then, obviously, I will not say that it was an easy journey, but I was used to manage that during this experience. I was also sitting on the ERGP, which is the European regulator body for postal regulators. And again, we were used to engage with the Commission and with the Parliament about this budgeting exercise. Then the cycle starting in November and going through the different steps to get a full approval after the budget of the EU will be approved. I will be happy to go in more details if you wish. About the human resource and how to solve it, yes, let's be very clear. Competition and scarce resource in terms of talent, it's a very high challenge. But I think that the majority of people that we see attracting in the civil servants are not coming from money. They are coming because they are very proud about what they do. I think that when we think about EU-LISA, it should be an organization we want to work for, and not because we want to receive a package and so on. And this is something that we succeed to do together with other leading civil servants across the EU to attract more people to the public services very successfully. And just to come back to your different delivery, let's be very clear. Never make promises you cannot meet and reach. And obviously, one of the things that is very important is to adapt your organization and your way of working in an agile way to make sure that you can deliver and take the right decision at any time this is necessary, involving the stakeholders. Then if you want to make sure that those systems will be delivered on time, I don't know exactly the internal situation for the moment, but it will be in my due diligence to see where we are, what are the key decisions to take, how to prioritize them to make sure that it can be delivered in the best time with no surprise for the stakeholders. Means if there are problems, we will be very clear. If there are no problems, we will make very clear that we will meet engagements. I cannot go into more details at this stage about that. About ID, I have to say that if you are used to leave and access, dear members of the Parliament, public services in Belgium, you are used to access the services through digital means, and there are different ways. Security and privacy and data protection is the core priority. Security by design, security by default. Then, in other words, we are subject to many, many risks, obviously, and evolution of digital solutions, and we have to keep attention all the time to have as a higher priority data privacy, data protection, and obviously security in general. The EID is already available for the Belgians and also what we call EIDs for other citizens for more than 15 years. And we are very proud that it can be used every day by all citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Monsieur Hamande, but I can only urge you to mind the time frame. It's absolutely essential because we are already in delay. It's the usual situation here in the Libre Works, but please try to stick to the time frame. So goes to you, Caterina Chinichi. Headphone.
Posso?
Avanti.
Sì, grazie Presidente.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Hamande, for your presentation, and congratulations for having reached the shortlist of candidates. Now, in your presentation, you said how important it was for EU-LISA to change so that it could handle new challenges and its new remit. Now, very important here is cybersecurity. I think this is an issue that's even more important given the context of the war in Ukraine and the increased attacks we've seen on European countries' IT systems. So my question is, what do you specifically believe that EU-LISA should do in this area, and how should cooperation with other EU agencies be increased in the context of cybersecurity? And then again, with regard to EU-LISA's increasing role, we know that as of the 1st of July 2023, EU-LISA will begin managing the e-CODEX tool, which is used for judicial cooperation and aims to improve the efficiency of cross-border communication between EU judicial authorities and improve access to justice for businesses and citizens. So how do you believe the increasing use of this tool should be managed? How can we ensure that we have a clear and transparent way of managing the exchange of important data and information? Thank you.
More than one question once again. Do it as short as possible.
Thank you very much for your question. Just to say in very short, EU-LISA is performing and developing services. It can't be done alone. It should be a good collaboration with, of course, the Commission and especially, for example, DG IT, DG Connect, and obviously working with EU ENISA, very closely about implementing the right certification scheme. All the solutions developed in terms of security should be going through very, very intensive and strict scrutiny in terms of security. Regarding the collaboration, I answer your questions. And what are the role of EU-LISA in specific? They need to implement what is in the regulation. For example, very high level of encryption and very, very high practice in terms of, let's say, managing security of people, process, hardware, software, network, and so on. Regarding the collaboration or the new role on July 2023, obviously EU-LISA should engage with the member states and the different users to define clearly what should be the best integration possible solution that need to be developed in a secure way, and of course respecting privacy and protection of all the data exchange. No data can be exposed to the external world because it would be falling outside the mandate of the EU-LISA and the related regulation applying to those solutions. We need more time to answer that in more details. I apologize.
Absolutely. Now we proceed right away to Renew. It'll be Sophie Intveld.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Hamande, for being here. We're talking a lot about cyber security, the security of our IT systems, etc., and all public authorities, governments, EU bodies, of course, are strongly committed to that. But there's a strange paradox, because at the same time, governments also have a keen interest in keeping vulnerabilities in the system. Okay, I see you're surprised. They actually do. Well, my colleague and I are working intensely on the spyware, the investigation into the abuse of spyware. There is a very lively trade in vulnerabilities and exploits. And of course, governments are also engaging in that because they need the vulnerabilities in order to spy on others. The problem is that by keeping those vulnerabilities, at the same time, we also don't provide full protection to our citizens and to our systems. How will you handle that paradox?
Now, your floor.
Thank you very much. EU-LISA mandate is to protect the data exchange on the different platforms that is providing to the different stakeholders. Then the mandate is very clear. No vulnerability is accepted. It should be defense walls and defense shields implemented across any applications to ensure that within this mandate it will be fulfilled. Then, in other words, there is no way to think about keeping any vulnerabilities in those systems. Obviously, in end-to-end integration in member state solutions, a point of attention, there might be vulnerabilities emerging from evolution of softwares or new techniques for attacking specific infrastructure. The underlying infrastructure, the data center infrastructure, the software should be fully protected to not allow any vulnerabilities and exposure of those data to anyone, to the exception the one that should be authorized to access those information. This is why it should be state-of-the-art on cybersecurity.
Thank you. That was fair enough. Now let's proceed to the following, which is the next strict agreements.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hamande, for your presentation and your candidacy. I'm here. Yeah, okay. As you also say, databases and data exchange is a very sensitive field, of course. It's related to fundamental rights. And I have some questions about this. You cooperate a lot of our EU LISA with other agencies, for instance, also on Frontex. What is your view on the role of EU LISA in order to make sure that also the use of data after exchanges can be abused or violate certain fundamental rights? What responsibility does, in your view, EU LISA has in that regard? How do you see the cooperation with external contractors? How can we make sure that they comply with the EU standards on data protection and cannot remotely access through different legal standards our data? And maybe you can say something about specifically facial recognition. We are now dealing with a regulation on Eurodac, which allows for the use of facial recognition also for children as of 6 years old. And it has some risks on accuracy, reliability, and the risk of discrimination. Do you think that we can exclude those risks completely? And how, what is your view on how to make sure that this is being done in a way that it's in line with our fundamental rights?
Floor to respond.
I like so much all the questions I received today. Thank you very much for that. Then the responsibility of EU LISA makes the distinction between two things. First is the mandate, where you have clear responsibility and demarcation points where EU LISA responsibility is starting and finishing. Now I will give you my personal feeling about that. It is no sense to protect something that afterwards you open the doors. Then this is very important that EU LISA, thanks also to the different advisory bodies, that it will be a good understanding and a good implementation end-to-end together with the members using EU LISA services. There are technology to ensure that when the data is transfer between 2 points of network, it can be, let's say, identified that we can see this data arrived in very high level of integrity, confidentiality, and authenticity. Then there are techniques for that, and it should be discussed. And I fully agree with you. This is very important because then we have an exposure. About the external parties, this is also very important. There is a lot of external parties. You can see the numbers in the budget of the EU LISA, about 100 million euros for external parties in development of applications. Those people should follow the same criteria in terms of security, standards, and respect of non-disclosure of information and so on. I hope they have also to go through a number of screenings and engaging themselves to respect all the regulations and all the process in terms of working in this agency. And I remind it, if I'm right, that they cannot access personal data in their duty. They can just develop applications, and I hope this is the case. To answer facial recognition, and I hope that it will not shock anyone in the room. I'm also involved in artificial intelligence discussion, and we developed for years, the technology improved a lot. It's still potential bias that can be introduced in those technologies. And I agree with you. We cannot guarantee at this stage 100% of accuracy. There might be different things. This is why you see in different phases that there are still agents or borders and so on still controlling that what we see, what we get is correct. Then the maturity of those technologies will progress from time to time. But at this stage, I will recommend to have, of course, a good understanding about how algorithms have been developed, and they are not introducing themselves any, let's say, risk in line with the ethical principles as defined by the Commission and the Parliament discussion about the AI Act. I hope that I give you at this stage enough information. Thank you.
Thank you. Now it'll be for ID, Mr. Madison.
Thanks so much, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Hamande. Thank you for your responses. EU LISA is a deeply important organization in the EU. And I'm just curious, maybe you were talking about this and I didn't hear, but how is your previous experience in the field of the leadership of the bigger organizations? Have you had any positions where you are responsible for leading a very important companies or in the public sector? What is your experience in the leadership, especially? Because it is very crucial importance to have those skills and management to keep it working on the right way. Thanks so much.
Or to respond.
Merci beaucoup. Je crois que je ne serai pas là. Sorry, excuse me. I don't believe I would be here if it was not already the case. I mean, as I said, during my experience, I was managing very large teams, building networks, and managing very, very large projects. There are two types of leadership you can have. The formal one means I'm the leader and I have a lot of people responding to me in an organization chart. And you have also a leadership which is impacting many organizations to bring them into movement to achieve the goals. In EU-LISA, the leadership function should combine both. You are working with internal staff, which is not so big. If you remember the numbers, they're very small. It's a small organization. My organization today is larger than that, and I had to manage a larger organization than EU-LISA in terms of staff. But the way you have to manage in terms of leadership external parties and to engage the people from a personal point of view, organization point of view, and results point of view, it's very important. Then I can tell you, I have managed very important projects involving, for example, at UN nations, involving negotiations and projects impacting 192 countries. I'm very proud of that I had the privilege to do that in confidence with all the members of the United Nations. And yes, we had an impact on a lot of countries, a lot of organizations, a lot of people. Then to summarize, we need both, not only a direct relation. I hope I answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And excuse me, if I'm not proved wrong, that'll do. As for the round of questions and answers for the second candidate of us. And I take the chance just to ask you, to the members of the national parliaments or the European Parliament which are attending the following slot, which is discussing Eurojust with Commissioner Reinders, our Justice Commissioner, to spare us some indulgence and understanding, because we're examining 3 candidates for EU-LISA, which is a relevant agency. We know that we're in delay, we're dragging behind, we kindly apologize, but that's the way it is with the European Parliament, overstuffed slots, at times impossible to handle. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Jack. Thank you. All the best. Thank you.